Hello, everybody, and welcome to this BIA webinar on diversity and inclusion in UK Biotech, where we are launching the BIA's first-of-a-kind sector report. I'm Steve Bates, the CEO of the BIA, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's event. 3 points from me. First of all, the BIA does lots of different types of policy initiatives and events, and what struck me is the enthusiasm amongst our membership for working on this agenda. It's been fantastic to see members engage with such alacrity in this work, and it's really exciting to see so many of you looking to take it forward. Secondarily, obviously, this is an area where each company's journey is going to be very different from each other, but I hope what we can do as the BIA, as your trade association, is signpost, share, champion and celebrate, of course, and of course provide mentoring, networking and sponsorship opportunities as we go all on our journeys through this. And we're committed to doing that. I'm committed to doing that, and I look forward to working with you going forward on this. This is a moment on a journey, not the be all and end all in itself. And my final thought is just to thank the BIA team who have enabled this to get to where we are today. It wouldn't have happened without the hard work of Kate, who will be chairing in a sec, Jane, who's been working behind the scenes, and Alina, who's put together a fantastic website for us on this one. And of course, this is an agenda that's been championed down the years through the BIA board, particularly by Charlotte and Claire and Olivia. And I want to thank my mentors in this, Jane Osborne and Ruth McKernan, who are chairs of the BIA, have encouraged me to work and go on my own journey in this space. So it's fantastic to have that support, this community. I look forward to listening and learning through the next hour, and I hand over to Sasha Grimm of Cooley's, who are kind enough to sponsor this. Sasha.
Thanks very much, Steve. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sasha Grimm, and I'm one of the Life Sciences Dispute Resolution Partners at Cooley. I'm also global co-chair of our Women's Initiative. And for that reason, the issue of diversity and inclusion is one that's very close to my heart personally. And I'm also very proud to say that it is a core part of our identity at Cooley. Cooley is delighted to be a strategic partner of the BIA and to sponsor this important report. Not only are we deeply committed to promoting diversity and inclusion within our own firm, but as a firm that's fortunate enough to work alongside and support more than 1,200 life sciences and medical technologies companies, we are deeply invested in the prosperity and growth of the UK biotech industry. And that growth is dependent on attracting and retaining innovative and diverse talent. I've always believed that what gets measured gets done, and that's why I think this report is so important. It will allow the life sciences and biotech sector in the UK for the first time to really see on an empirical basis what the issues are and then to take action. I have no doubt that this report will be the start of countless discussions and initiatives and will be fundamental in driving progress across the sector. And we at Cooley are incredibly proud to be part of that effort. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Kate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sasha and Steve, and thank you, Steve, as well for your leadership of BIA in enabling us to put this diversity and inclusion report together. It's been, a huge team effort, and thank you very much for your leadership. So the purpose really of the report is to put that baseline evidence together of diversity and inclusion across UK biotech. It's so key to have a diverse and inclusive workforce for both our innovation and driving those ideas. And also there's a really key investment part to that too. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jason Melland, who is CEO and co-founder of Start Codon, who will give us that investor's perspective. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Kate, and thank you, everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to be speaking to you today and to also have contributed in some small way to this report. I think it's truly groundbreaking and exciting to see that we're moving in the right direction. Still a lot of challenges in our industry and sector, but definitely the future is bright. I think from an investor perspective, we at Start Codon and my colleagues in the venture capital space are very clear that diversity matters, not only because it's the morally right thing to do, but also because more diverse teams outperform those that are less diverse. Time and time again, the metrics that have been collected over the past several decades have demonstrated that gender diversity, ethnic diversity, and diversity of thought, background, and all facets you can imagine lead to more robust teams and better outcomes. Personally speaking, with my investor hat on, when I'm looking at teams, one of the first things I start to judge them by when I'm performing due diligence is how diverse are they? What is the breadth of their experiences? And then we actively encourage them to really think outside of the box and be more inclusive, both from a management team perspective, as well as the unmet needs that they're addressing with their technology. Some of the interesting statistics that were highlighted in the report are really, I think, important for us to flag here again, because it shows that there's a lot of work left to do. We've seen that only 14% of business angels are women in the UK, and less than 11% are from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds. I know personally that I'm one of the few Black investors in the biotech arena in the UK, and probably one of the even fewer who are managing their own funds. We're actively working with the BIA and other partner organizations to change that. It's clear that it's not only for us to be investing in more diverse teams, but we must also have more diverse investors. We tend to back opportunities that we know, opportunities that resonate with us because of our lived experiences. If the room that you are pitching as a startup founder is not reflective of the world around us, then you will inherently skew and bias those companies and opportunities that are eventually backed. So it's vitally important that off of the back of the statistics that have been highlighted in this report, that we continue to train up and open the doors for more diverse investors, as well as the startup founders who we are supporting. I think it's also important for us to talk about diversity in terms of the various opportunities and unmet needs that our companies are addressing with their technology. If you have a diverse team, and you understand that there are marginalized communities that have been historically underrepresented, then you will be developing solutions that impact them in a positive way. Too often, the studies of the past that have led to clinical trials and drugs getting to market have not been trialed on a diverse population. But it is very important that we recognize that in the UK, diversity is at the forefront, both for clinical trial design, as well as the solutions that different companies are tackling. We take all of this into account as investors to make sure that we are developing products for the future through the companies that we are backing. I think it's also interesting to highlight sister reports like the one that comes out periodically from McKinsey and partners, looking at how diversity has a positive impact on the success of startups and scale-ups. It's really clear from their figures that if you're looking at Latin America, the UK, and the US for the top performing companies, over 300 that were surveyed and assessed in their recent report, they also flag that 25% better performance in more female diverse management teams and 36% greater performance in more ethnically diverse management teams. It makes perfect business sense. So the BIA's report is highlighting definitely that there is a growing trend moving in the right direction of us having these more diverse founders, more diverse investors, more diverse boards. That is going to have a net positive benefit to make sure that these companies are more successful, that they're resilient, they know how to pivot and address the unmet needs of historically marginalized communities. And importantly, our industry is going to continue to grow as we are more inclusive, because it means that there are more opportunities to tap into innovative talent from across multiple different backgrounds and perspectives. So with that, I would say that I'm very proud at StartCodon to have 50% female founders and a significant number of founders from different minority backgrounds that are historically underrepresented in our field, but it's only the beginning. And I'm also proud to say that my colleagues on today's webinar and those who contributed to the BIA report, and indeed the broader UK biotech community, are all definitely on board, and we're grateful to see these metrics pulled together and the advice and direction of travel laid out in front of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you so much for your support throughout the time of putting the report together, but also across the community. Thank you. I think you've given us some real food for thought there in terms of the investment community. And now I'm going to hand over to Kirsty Utes, who is Interim Chief Exec of Innovate UK KTN, to give us the perspective from an innovation point of view. Hi, Kirsty.
Yeah. Hi, Kate. Thanks for that. Yeah, so hello, everyone. As Kate said, I'm Kirsty Utes, and I'm the Interim Chief Exec at Innovate UK KTN, or Knowledge Transfer Network. And if you don't know anything about us, it's kind of summed up in our purpose, which is around diverse connections for positive change. So how do we link together SMEs, universities, government, large companies, to drive not just economic impact, but also societal and environmental impact as well. But I guess one of the reasons for me being here today is that I'm not just the interim chief exec. I'm also the exec sponsor for diversity and inclusion across both Innovate UK, KTN, and also Innovate UK. And I'm actually going to start off in some of the areas which have already been touched upon by Jason earlier, which is around the business case for diversity. And it is absolutely unequivocal. More diverse leadership teams ultimately lead to better financial performance through attracting top talent, increased employee satisfaction and decision making, and driving diversity of thought that ultimately stimulates innovation. Gender and ethnicity as examples are important components of diversity, and they play a critical role in delivering that business performance. And as already mentioned, McKinsey and Company have launched a number of really quite fundamental reports in this area. And they showed in 2019, again, as has already been highlighted, that companies with gender diversity in the top quartile were 25% more likely to experience above average profitability than those peer companies in the fourth quartile. And that was an increase from the 15% reported in 2014. So if you haven't read those reports, there's a number of them. Diversity Matters and Diversity Wins, and I really recommend and strongly encourage you to go read them. However, when we contrast that against the Rose Review of Female Entrepreneurship, again, which is an excellent report, and it was first published in 2019, that highlighted that fewer UK women chose to be entrepreneurs than in best practice peer countries. Women are 5 times less likely than men to build a business over £1 million plus turnover, and women-led businesses are less likely to receive funding at all stages of the investment journey. Since then, there has been progress, and this can be read in the yearly Rose Review update. So again, I encourage you to go and read them. But there still remains this ambition to unlock the £250 billion value to the UK economy if women in the UK match men in starting and scaling business. So that's why this BIA report is really important. It's a first of its kind data set, which highlights key recommendations that can make a real difference to attracting diverse talent, accessing investment, and retaining the skills needed for a successful, innovative life sciences and biotech sector in the UK. And I think there's some real positives that can be taken from this report. Whilst it highlights that some areas still need significant review and work, for example, it is great to read that across those surveyed, female and male representation are overall in a general parity, and that's in keeping with the global biotech industry. And I'll actually make some comparisons later to the nuclear sector in this respect. But it's disappointing that this number falls at the executive and founder levels, and this trend is also reflected when considering ethnic minorities. The inclusion data is also really highly informative and impactful, but, and dare I say, perhaps not surprising. So the dominant group from the survey were white, heterosexual males without a disability, and they had higher inclusion scores across all those metrics measured than non-dominant groups. For example, those containing women, those from ethnic minorities, those with a disability, or those from the LGBTQ plus community. So perhaps this emphasizes the importance of both diversity and also inclusion, and that whilst the biotech community may be relatively diverse, not everyone feels included. And for those not familiar with the difference between diversity and inclusion, there's this really great analogy and definition that diversity is all about being invited to the party, but inclusion is about being asked to dance. Now, I said I'd make a comparison with the nuclear sector, and I worked in the nuclear sector for about 3.5 years, and during that time I was a member of an organisation called Women in Nuclear, which is a volunteer organisation, and that was all about trying to achieve gender balance, gender parity in the nuclear sector. And in 2018, the nuclear sector deal was launched, and some of you may remember these were kind of handshakes between industry and government about what key targets were. So within the nuclear sector deal, there were targets around decommissioning and nuclear new build, but also fantastically, there was also about a target about increasing female representation within the sector. And in 2018, that percentage of female within nuclear was roughly about 20%. And the target was to try and achieve 40% by 2030. And the reason that 50% wasn't chosen is that was felt to be way too ambitious. So now here we are in 2023, 5 years later, after the target was set. And I'm disappointed to say that despite a number of interventions, despite the great and the good absolutely recognizing that female representation, diversity and inclusion is so important. The percentage female representation is still at 20%. There's been no movement of that needle in the last 5 years. So I guess my ask to those present on the call today is that, you know, now we have the data, we have the BIA report, let's work together to make a real difference to enable real change, so that in 5 years' time, we're still not here reporting the same data and discussing the same issues, because we can all help to elicit change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirsty, and thank you for that comparison to other sectors as well, in terms of what difference that evidence can make to help build that change. So I'm going to take you briefly through some of the aspects of the report. I'm hoping that the vast majority of people on the call will have read the report. But if we look at the methodology to start with, so we invited core biotech member companies from BIA to join the survey, with the view that they will have the access to their company data, so their individual company data, and BIA will have access to that collated data. So we had over 1,200 individual employees across innovative life sciences in the UK put their data forwards across self-identified demographics, which included gender, race and ethnicity, and sexual identity, physical disability, cognitive learning conditions, as well as mental health. Also, some of those workplace experiences. So you heard there from Kirsty talking about that diversity, but the inclusion piece is so important. So we can't attract talent to our organisations and then not keep them. We spend a lot of effort attracting that great talent, so we need to make our organisations as inclusive. So those workplace experiences were about the culture of the organisation, about management and career development, but also we added some additional data around tenure and leadership and social mobility. And that meant that we could do some really deep intersectional analysis around, you know, how people from different demographics felt within those organisations in terms of how included. So overall, over 20,000 data points, and lots of data, a highlight of which is pulled together in the report. And there are some companies there identified who took part, but a really big thank you from the BIA to those companies and individuals who did share their data with us. The data is what's going to make the difference, and we couldn't have done it at all without you. We partnered with an organisation called Diversio, who specialise in diversity and inclusion, and I just want to invite Sunil to say a few words around the partnership with BIA and Diversio.
Kate, good morning. Thank you for that introduction. Good morning, everybody else. Just a few thoughts, actually. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure to partner with the BIA on the creation of this report. As you say, Kate, providing the survey, data framework and technology platform. I think you and I started this conversation in December 2020. How time has flown by. Kirsty, I love your quote. I think the other one that I like to use, if diversity is the fact and then inclusion is the act, or as I like to refer to it, inclusion is the art. I think what really makes this report stand out is that focus on inclusion and the cultural element of D&I. And arguably what really matters in D&I is understanding the level of inclusivity and how diverse individuals, the level of inclusion and belonging within an organization. I think from what we see, increasingly LPs, limited partners, are also now looking to embed inclusion metrics into investment processes. So it's great to see the UK life sciences sector lead from the front. And I think, Kate, I've said this to you many, many times, but to our knowledge, my knowledge, the BIA is the only industry body in the UK that has explored inclusion and gone beyond just purely representation. So kudos to you, kudos to the BIA, kudos to the members that participated in this first of its kind report in the UK. And I look forward to continuing our partnership and helping you roll out the recommendations. I can talk forever because it's just great to be here with you. But kudos to you, Kate, and kudos to the organisation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And just a few highlights of the data. And I think kind of Kirsty covered a number of those reports that can be referenced. So a number of those are referenced in the report. So if you go to diversity in biotech, you go to the report, then there'll be hyperlinks to a lot of those references, including the McKinseys and the Rose reviews, etc. So highlights, as Kirsty said, in terms of the gender representation, we have good parity. So that's a good starting point. Let's dig a little deeper under that. We can see that drops off at senior leadership and C-suite, and even more so at CEO level So there's work to be done there. And also in terms of gender balance across departments, there are some departments that are heavily dominated by women in terms of number, but then also as we go through into more of the engineering, manufacturing and computation and digital roles, heavily dominated by men. And so there's some work to do there in terms of parity across the different departments. If we look at race and ethnicity, this is something that actually, again, when you look at the surface compared to UK demographics and global benchmarks, actually UK Biotech is diverse and does have a good spread of ethnicity and racial backgrounds. However, there's significant underrepresentation from those with a Black background, and particularly again at sort of senior leadership and C-suite roles. And also there's a real disparity across different departments if you look at representation across those different groups. One of the different areas that we looked at, so one of the bespoke questions, was around social mobility. And we analysed this by asking the highest qualification of the household reference person, so parent or carer, while you were growing up. And actually what we can see here is that there's quite a disparity between the environment that the contributors were growing up in terms of individual contributors had quite a balanced access to those with doctoral qualifications, bachelor's degrees or postgraduate. But as you move through kind of into more senior leadership roles, actually the background of C-suite is over a third doctoral background. So I think there's some work to do to think about, what could we do there? And we've got some organisations online today who will be able to talk about some of the work that's being done in these different areas. As Sunil said there, we looked at inclusion. So the diversity piece is important, but that inclusion, how do people feel and how do we retain that talent within our organisation? So overall, UK Biotech inclusive and much more inclusive than our global benchmarks. So a really good and safe place to work. Overall, our dominant group, which is our profile of those most seen in leadership positions, for UK Biotech, that's our sort of white heterosexual males without any disabilities or cognitive learning conditions, really included within the organisation and really good scores. But overall, everybody's score was lower around career development. So if we're going to target some sort of area for work and improvement, career development is the area where everybody would be able to benefit from. So some work to do there, but also some work to do in terms of our leadership and our advocates to support others within their organisation and bring those inclusion scores up. What we're able to do with the diversity and the inclusion scores is really look at that intersectionality data. And this is where I can kind of lose myself in the data. There is so much there. So if anybody wants to talk more specifically about certain points within this data, more than happy to follow up. Because it's really about asking the questions, asking the hypothesis, and then looking at what the data is able to show. So this is just an example in terms of those with and without a physical disability. In terms of our sector, we're very good at putting those flexibilities in place, but are we as good, and the data would suggest perhaps not, as making sure that that's that inclusive culture and that people with and without a disability feel as included within their organisations. So the key recommendations from the report focus on a number of areas. One of those is about collecting and benchmarking the data. What BIA are able to do is provide that benchmark in this first in kind report. And what the companies are able to do that partake in this report was get their individual data and really look at those individual points. It's really vital that leaders champion this action, and it's fantastic to see the sponsorship of Steve and the BIA board to make this happen. But in organisations, leaders need to champion this. It needs to be part of the organisation's strategic direction. BIA will help signpost with partner organisations, and we've got some of those on today, and there's more work that we can do. There are gaps around our inclusion in terms of recruitment and hiring practices. And so there are opportunities for organisations to learn about how to make those practices more inclusive. And particularly, as we saw with that inclusion data, all organisations, and no matter what your demographic, the career mentoring and sponsorship was a really key piece that came out in terms of a recommendation. So I'm going to leave that there in terms of the report. There's a lot more data in the report. Please do go and read. But also, if you want access to any specific information, we're more than happy to provide that in terms of making sure that that evidence and that data is the foundation of those actions and driving that change. So with that, what I'm going to do is invite Rosie, who is SVP of Growth, Head of People and Projects at Relation Therapeutics, and Rita, who is a research scientist at Sixfold Bioscience, to talk to us a little bit about why they took part in the reports for BIA and what they've learned as their individual organisations. So over to you, Rosie.
Great. Thank you very much, Kate, and thank you also to the BIA for putting this together. And it's wonderful to be part of this first in-sector effort. So first of all, if I may, Kate, and hello everybody, just to give you an introduction. I'm Rosie Rodriguez. I'm the SVP of Growth at Relation Therapeutics. And we are a seed stage startup based in the centre of London. There's 35 of us currently, and we use a sort of high resolution biology combined with machine learning and clinical insights to discover medicines. But we cannot do this without the incredible team that we have. And of course, like all of us in this webinar, having a diverse workforce is absolute key. We currently at 40% gender balance across the company. In senior leadership, we are at 40% as well. But I think just reflecting and on the why, as Kate said, why did we get involved? So first of all, we got involved because as a company, even though we're a small organization, this is absolutely critical to us. As Jason said, you know, sort of having a workforce that is reflective of the real world is key. And first of all, just having a baseline to us as when we did the survey, there was, I think, 22 of us. We had 100% participation, but still we were much smaller than we are now. But that just also signals to our team the importance that us as a leadership are putting into inclusion and diversity as well. But initially, it's just also getting our baseline. In terms of some of the things that we have done and we are continuing to do, and we will continue to do as we grow, to really sort of grow our diversity and sort of, you know, within the team. One of the main things is around recruiting. And a simple but very effective, but also sort of very intentional action that we do is when we're recruiting and we're doing panels, interview panels, as we do for every single candidate. These panels are 50% women, 50% men. And to me, that was absolutely critical. This has to represent the sort of company that we are building, but also not just for us internally, but for potential candidates that are coming through. So signaling what we are aiming and what type of company we are. Also, some of the things just to sort of share that we're very passionate about as well is pay parity and ensuring that there's not pay gaps between genders, and that absolutely all of that is in place, and like for like, there's absolute not pay gap. However, what I also want to just say and be very transparent here, as you saw from the slide that Kate shared around the gender balance on computational machine learning roles, that although we have 40% overall across the company gender balance, this is more comprised in most roles except computational and machine learning roles, and that's where we are struggling the most. So hence doing some of those interventions, working with some of our recruiting partners that are clearly as passionate about this as we are, but also the other piece that is very important to us, and as part of the sort of the high competition, but also the lack of talent on gender representation in computational machine learning roles, is ensuring that as we bring sort of more junior female talent in these roles, we also have the way to develop them as leaders, because it's not just the now, but it's the future. And sort of doing a few of those interventions is absolutely key. So we do have now, I'm glad to say, quite a few more computational scientists and machine learning team members that are female, but the majority are in a more junior role. So ensuring that we do help them and support them through developing their leadership capabilities is key, and will be one of the things that we are, as a company, will be doing, again, sort of from a personal development perspective. That has also been reflected as part of the report. So Kate, thank you, and the BIA, again, thank you very much for doing what you do, and we are delighted to be part of this.
So from my side, again, so I'm Rita and I'm working as a research and development scientist at Sixfold. As Rosie also said, like we're also a small startup with about 30 people. But like since the founding day of our company, like there was a clear intent of trying to redefine what the concept of normal is. And we participated in the BIA and Diversio-led industry report because we felt that the output would, first of all, like allow us to make data-driven decisions based on industry benchmarks, but also importantly, we could contribute to a wider industry analysis on a wider biotech sector where we need to prioritize. Not only, like it also provides transparency for our team itself on where we sit and help us learn from other companies and create a more inclusive workplace. So what our initial statement was and what we fundamentally wanted to build and be part of is a company that makes fair and equitable decisions. And there are a couple of actions that Sixfold has been taking on different fronts, including having women in leadership positions, including a majority female-led board. To just link to the whole automation and machine learning discussion, we also, like the lead of our automation team is also a woman. We are doing a merit-based promotion system where the skill set is what it's considered, and the career framework is completely clear. It's written down, and we know what is expected from each role and in each position. And doing this, I think like one of the implications is that our seniority, our career framework and seniority transition is not based on just the time spent within the company, because we know that how that can end up impacting some groups more than another. Like first example that comes to my mind is like women having to take maternity leaves and so on. We have transparent like pay bands, so groups that are statistically more likely to negotiate lower salaries are also paid fairly. We have participated, for example, last year in social mobility programs for underrepresented groups. We, like the company has invested in training for like some of the individuals to have mental health responders at the workplace. And we are integrated within the London community of the OutBio network as well. So it was nice for us to see that the results from this survey nicely reflected our internal values and what the initial statement was, giving us mainly like the best scores on the gender equality front, fair and transparent hiring process, and diverse ethnic and background representation. But as much as we are proud of having been able to action our initial statement, obviously this is just a starting point. And Diversio and the BIA has helped us connect with other businesses in the sector, looking at ways to push DEI forward. And we want to use this network to show what works for us, why it works for us, and to implement other great ideas that our other companies have been working on, and to improve so we can all improve further all together. being especially interested in sharing our network and facilities with programs that are focused on social mobility programs for underrepresented groups, and offering, for example, summer placements and internships to give students a hands-on experience of what working in a startup looks like on all the different levels. And we are also, as next step, we are also like launching internal surveys to know directly from our employees which aspects of DEI they would like for our company to focus on. And we have had like a big engagement and great suggestions, as for example, focusing on neurodiversity a little bit more as well. So to conclude from my side, we are here to be part of a very necessary movement that actively tackles biases within our sectors and hopefully beyond.
Thank you so much, Rita, and thank you, Rosie. It's been great to have both Relation and Sixfold as part of the programme, and it's really inspiring to hear what you're leading in your organisations, and the passion and the energy that there is between you. As part of the report, one of the recommendations that we have in there is about the BIA being able to signpost and support organisations. And Rita mentioned there in terms of building that network. We've got a number of organisations now who are able to just explain a little bit about their contribution to the reports, but also their role in moving the needle on some of these different aspects of diversity and inclusion. So I'd like to welcome Tom and Rhoda and Luke to the screen. I was going to say to the stage, but to the screen. And we can hear a little bit about their organisations, what they've been doing, and how they are making an impact on diversity and inclusion across organisations. There we go. Tom, off to you.
Good morning, and thanks, Kate, and thanks to the BIA as a whole for convening this event, but also, of course, driving the initiative with the data and analysis project. Incredibly important one, since our Bio UK was formed in 2020. Anecdotally, we heard a lot of rumblings on the ground about people wanting data like this, and the need for it, the value that it would create as a baseline. And I think some of many of the parameters that you have explored in the report are genuine firsts. I think what Sunil was saying about the importance of the inclusion data set in particular really resonated, because if you don't have those intangible parameters included, if you don't have those, you don't have any basis upon which to make interventions to improve retention or attracting talent. And if you don't have that, as a company or as an industry, what do you have? So a little bit about our Bio. Our Bio, by day, I'm a communications consultant in biotech, but I sit on the boards of both OutBio US and OutBio UK. OutBio UK was formed in 2020, and it's one of a number of branches of the OutBio model, which is essentially an LGBTQ+ focused group, professionals group in the life sciences. And there's about 7 branches. It began in Massachusetts, in Boston, Massachusetts, of course, as a hub for the industry. We have about 2,000 members in the local group there, and it's been duplicated in various geographies, some cities, or in the case of OutBio UK, on a national level. And from 2020, we've built close on 200 members now in the UK. And the focus, in our first sort of stage of development, particularly, given the timing of COVID, etc., has really been on member growth, networking events, and beginning our outreach to the industry locally and building those networks. The premise of OutBio, sort of internationally, was always, it began with networking, but subsequently the model has evolved, and in the States, for example, it's an incorporated charity. We offer mentoring programs, scholarships for young LGBTQ people coming into the industry, which is wonderful. And we have very strong relationships with all the major biopharma companies over the last 6 or 7 years of operations. And through them, we operate a wide number of events and pull in expertise to consult on relevant topics and provide talks to convened groups. So in the I think one reflection on the role of Outbio in the industry. Obviously, as an industry that is comprised mostly of small to medium-sized enterprises in an innovation field, there's huge value in knowledge sharing, finding new opportunities for new roles, keeping, as a professional, keeping your ear to the ground about what's happening in the industry. I think in particular, and we've heard this anecdotally, for minority communities, extra corporate organizations play a really powerful role in providing intel, providing solidarity that you can't get through LinkedIn, or you can't get through other channels. And it's a number of things which are difficult to define, but I think the membership growth and organizational growth that we've seen over the years has spoken to the real hunger for allied organizations in our industry. And it would be interesting to have more conversations, digging into why that might be. But in our experience, it's something to do with the particular mix and size of the organizations in the industry. One thing that we really try and focus on, and I'll pick up on this in a minute in terms of some of the data from the report, is with the mentorship programs, with the scholarship programs, we really see the pipeline of talent as being so crucial. It's obviously fed at one end, but also it's pulled from the other end. And that's why, for us, visibility of LGBTQ executives is such an important initiative for us. It was interesting, reviewing the report. There was insufficient data to speak to C-suite sexual orientation in that aspect of the data, which is obviously just a feature of the reporting and then the population sampled, etc. But it is worth mentioning that anecdotally, we really do feel like there is an absence of visibility of LGBTQ leadership at the C-suite level in the industry. And so it was, I don't know if the word is ironic, but it was noteworthy that was reflected in the data. And certainly one of the things that we encourage people to do who are in a senior position, who are LGBTQ plus identifying, is to get in touch with Outbio, because we'd like to build a groundswell of support at that most senior level, and leverage the networks and experience of those people. Two other data points I wanted to highlight from the data. It was interesting to see that LGBTQ respondents were the group that most felt like there was a mentor or sponsor in the organizations that they felt was invested in their success. Unknown as to whether that sponsor was LGBTQ plus identifying themselves, but it was a cheering sign, I think, and maybe LGBTQ plus people are just better at hustling and finding those internal champions for themselves. I don't know, but I think it's an important point there. As we, reaching out to the community gathered here today and to your wider networks, what I would love to say is, when considering the LGBTQ plus professional populations in your organizations, reach out to organizations like Outbio. We do have a lot of experience working with organizations to reach out to their internal employee groups, find new ways to support their career journeys and help them be heard within your organization. Outbio UK in the year ahead are looking at collating a best practices document with expert input, specifically to speak to these sorts of initiatives and build a sort of local body of expertise to help organizations with this particular dimension of DEI. The website is outbio.uk, and certainly you feel free through the BIA team to reach out to me directly or through that website to begin a conversation with us.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for that. And thank you for the signposting as well to your organisation. I'd like to hand over to Rhoda, who is going to tell us a little bit about your STEM Scholars Programme.
Thanks so much, Kate. Can you hear me? Great, thank you. So thanks, everyone. My name is Rhoda Steele. So I'm Head of Social and Community Impact at Johnson & Johnson. And again, it's so great to be here and to have participated in some small way in the report with my colleague Nerida Scott, who most of you know, head of Johnson & Johnson and EMEA Innovation. And again, just to say congrats to the team who put it together, and of course, the strong insights and the opportunity for action that have been generated. So I just wanted to take a few moments to just share some insights on some of the work and the journey in particular that we've been on as a company, and a practical example of how we've been looking intentionally about closing some of the race disparity and equity gaps in STEM and in the industry in particular. So I think from a D&I perspective, it's been core to how we've operated as an organization, as many have done. So looking at driving the culture of inclusion and belonging, building a workforce that reflects the diversity of communities we serve, and striving to create more equitable access and outcomes. You know, that's been core to how we've operated. But I think it's fair to say, in the wake of the events in 2020, following the murder of George Floyd, and in particular, the more visible light being shone on racial and social injustice and the disparity gaps that exist, it raised all of our awareness for the need for commitment to this space, individually and corporately. And it was the opportunity then really to turn a pivotal moment into a movement. So transparently as an organization, we started having more conversations, more conversations about where the gaps were, where we needed to focus, and where we needed to be really intentional about closing those gaps. And one of those was the acknowledgement of the gap in Black talent in STEM and in the industry. And the data obviously in the report backs it up. We didn't have it at the time, but it was obvious just looking around the room. So just to pull out some of those facts in the data, which shows that obviously in the UK life sciences and biotech industry is actually as diverse, if not slightly more racially and ethnically, so 19.6% compared to 15% of the UK population. But when you look specifically into Black employees, there's a notable difference. So 1.6% versus 3.5%. So that was really the opportunity that we really wanted to focus in on. And when we talked more about it, I think as Tom's mentioned, it was actually looking at pipeline. How do we build more capacity? How do we build more access points? How do we build more awareness in society, in community to pull people, to pull Black talent through the pipeline? And this was the key insight. And this is an insight that really has driven us around the creation of the STEM Scholars Program, which is that a young person is 86% less likely to be NEET, so not in training, education, or employment, with only 4 or more interactions with an organization like Johnson & Johnson. So for us, we felt it was our responsibility to really keep creating those access points, those touch points, this opportunity for young people to get more access and more exposure to what the opportunities could be to have a career in this space. Now, as a company, while we've got our program is called Investing in the Next Generation of Healthcare Talent, it's actually been a key focus area for us over the last number of years. And we've actually reached over 50,000 young people through some of the insights in STEM, 54% of those being women. But this was a case about looking at equality versus equity, where equality obviously is giving everyone the same tools, but equity is specifically going in to recognize that not everyone has the same circumstances and looking to create those tools. So really pleased to just talk about a little bit the STEM Scholars Program, the Johnson & Johnson STEM Scholars Program. So we started that in 2021, specifically looking at supporting Black students in London who are studying STEM in further education, and aiming to really support those who will have the potential to excel in a career in STEM, but creating more of those access touch points and more knowledge about routes into their chosen career. So it's a 5-year program. It's championed by Johnson & Johnson Innovation. I know many of you on the call have actually been involved in the program, so thank you so much for your input. And it's a catalyst program really to support, first of all, 25 selected students who are in year 12 and year 13 for 2 years, and then a further cohort of students all the way through university, including a paid internship and into the industry. A key part of the program, and I think that's been highlighted in the report, has been coaching and mentoring. So we've matched every student to a Johnson & Johnson mentor who will support them through the tenure of their time on the program for the first 2 years and into university. And as I said, since November 21, students have taken part in monthly workshops, building their understanding of the industry, of STEM careers, creating more access with tools and with work experience to really just support them along that journey into a career in the industry. We had a work experience program, for example, last year, and again, massively supported by, Johnson & Johnson employees across the UK, including external speakers, as I said, most of you have been involved with. And we've really been able to leverage the strength of J&J across the business sectors to support the program. We're about to enter into phase 2, so selecting students who will go through their university tenure, who we will support. And I think I just want to say that, some of the pieces of the report are really helping support where we want to take the program even further. So the first piece around collecting and benchmarking data, ensuring that we're continually looking at data in terms of student selection and how we move the program forward. The leadership was so critical in terms of making those bold decisions to intentionally focus on where those gaps were and create those access points. Thinking about those inclusive recruitment practices, but recognizing that actually we needed to really look at pipeline here and create those access points and that intentionality for the program. And then really the importance of mentoring and sponsorship and representation has been key on the program as well. So it's a journey that we started and that we are committed to continuing. As I said, it's a catalyst. We invite as many of you as possible to participate in it, and feel free to reach out, and I will reach out and with more information. But I just want to finish with a quote from one of the students who was in year 12 when she applied, and one of the key drivers for what's compelled us to support this program and to keep driving it. And she said, "Growing up in an area known for its high rates of crime and violence, it's common for people to look for the worst in you, labeling you as unsuccessful without knowing you. But just being given this opportunity to be part of the J&J STEM Scholars Program has shown me that I can suppress the preconceptions society's put upon me and still excel to be the successful Black woman I've always tried to be." So really proud of this program, as you could tell, and we'll be happy to share more as we go down the line. Thank you.
Fantastic, Rhoda, and what a fantastic quote as well to end with. Thank you, that's amazing. So we're going to hand over to Luke. It's a nice intersection into the work of Into Science.
Brilliant. Good morning, everyone. My name is Luke McKelvey, and I'm the Development Manager at Interscience UK. Since 2011, Interscience UK has been enabling young people from low-income backgrounds to take part in high-quality STEM work placement experiences at UK universities, research centres and industries, enabling them to gain high-quality, relevant experience with positive role models and that follow-on support to enable them to truly progress onto higher education and STEM careers. All of the young people that we are working with are from low-income backgrounds in that they are recipients of free school meals and have a parental background in which neither parent has taken part or attended higher education institutions. Sadly, only 11% of these young people progress onto top-tier universities to study STEM. However, independent analysis of Interscience UK's programmes conducted by UCAS Strobe has proven that 46% of the young people that are taking part in the Interscience UK work placement programme are progressing onto top-tier universities. And the reasoning behind this is by providing high-quality, relevant, targeted programmes, enabling young people to access positive role models and that long-term support with things like university applications, professional materials, and ability to actually take part in training for interviews has enabled them to reach the next phase in their life and take part in higher education. In light of our positive impact, we received a Queen's Award for promoting opportunity through social mobility in 2021, which is fantastic for us and highlights our positive impact. But from reading, the report put together by the BIA, something that I'd like to pick out and discuss was how that 37% of C-suite respondents came from a family background in which a PhD was the highest level of kind of family qualifications. And, in light of the lack of diversity and inclusion within doctoral training programs, within PhDs, Interscience UK has launched our Inter Research programme, which enables postgraduates from diverse backgrounds to take part in 8 weeks of high quality research training with dedicated volunteers and receiving a bursary. So there's no financial barrier preventing them from accessing these facilities and this high quality experience that will enable them to access doctoral training programs going forward and further diversifying the sector. Something I would really like to highlight as well from this report is the recommendations and how relevant they are in relation to the importance of data collection, the fundamental importance of leaders championing diversity and inclusion within organisations and industries, and the role of mentoring and sponsorship and opening up facilities to young people and enabling them to gain experience. And, you know, I really want to focus on how the BIA and BIA member organisations are indeed championing diversity and inclusion in STEM. By being a charitable organisation and working with the wider membership pool, we've been able to secure support and funding to enable us to expand across the United Kingdom. For example, the Avantor Foundation has supported over 150 young people through the Intersectionality UK programme in the last 2 years alone. Without working with organisations such as the Avantor Foundation and the BIA, we would not be the national organisation we are today, supporting 700 young people every year in regions of the United Kingdom where there are very few opportunities indeed. And so for me, this report, it is indeed highlighting the inequalities that we are facing within the sector. It's highlighting the needs, and it's also highlighting relevant actions and recommendations that organisations and leaders within the biotech and STEM sector are taking and shall continue to take to improve diversity and inclusion within the sector. So I feel this is a hugely optimistic report in the sense that it will be enabling and contributing to further social mobility going forward. And I just want to thank the BIA for enabling Interscience UK to be part of this report and highlighting our mission and work, as I know it will contribute to further expansion of this programme and more young people from low-income backgrounds getting the experience they need. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you to all the participants today for your contributions to the report and to driving this change. So thank you to Tom, to Luke and to Rhoda in terms of your partnerships and the organisations that you represent. Thank you to Rita and Rosie for describing some of the reasons why you participated in the report in the first place and that data collection and some of the initiatives and some of the actions that it's actually, that evidence base is driving in your organisations. Please do take time to read the report and use the hashtag diversity in biotech. The report is diversityinbiotech.org and please do feel free to reach out and get in touch with any questions or queries about how you can progress further within your organisation around the diversity and inclusion agenda. So thank you very much and appreciate everybody attending today. Thank you.